You know, I don't often call people out directly on YouTube. I just think that's poor taste. I prefer to use a series of clever innuendos to let them know what I think, or just say snarky things behind their back when they're not around. That's how I roll. But today I'm going to make an exception. I am going to call out TFB TV for a recent test they did with the SIG P320. They did a hammer test with the SIG P320. They said that they have shown that it is not the physical weight of the trigger that's causing the problem, because they can make the gun go off by hitting it on the back with a hammer, the back of the slide with a hammer. But their test is extremely flawed, and their conclusion was absolutely wrong. Now, I'm going to go on record saying that, I'm not a huge fan of the SIG P320. I mean, I think they're great as far as polymer guns go, but that's like saying, herpes is okay as far as STDs go. This is still just a polymer gun. I wouldn't care if they stopped making them tomorrow. I mean, I carry a real gun, so why would I care about this gun? Like I said in my first video, I didn't fucking make it, so I don't care if there's something wrong with it. But I don't think it's fair to misrepresent a test, to do a test improperly, and then misrepresent it on your channel, and I'm calling them out. Now, I'm not saying they're dishonest, although they are a ginger, which means they have no soul, so they tend to be shady. But I'm just going to point out what's wrong with their tests. In their test, they took a SIG P320 and then they bashed it with a hammer. And I'm not going to bash my gun with a hammer because I got more sense than that. But they bash it on the back with a hammer and they eventually get it to fire. Now, if you watch their video, which isn't filmed with a slow motion camera, and that's one of the problems, you'll see he hits it a few times and he manages to hold the gun pretty steady, hits it a few times, it doesn't go off. And then, like on the third or fourth hit, he pulls the gun forward, pulls the hammer back, pulls the gun backwards, and smacks it with the hammer. He's just recreated the same circumstances of a drop test. He has pulled the gun backwards, slammed the gun. And here's another thing. Even if he didn't do that, which he clearly did in the video, and the trigger does move, you can barely tell it because it's not a slow motion camera, but you can tell it, and that's what happened. And he needs to represent that as that's what happened. But even if he didn't yank it to the rear, which he did, if you notice, holding it steady, doesn't fire, fired. Even if he didn't do that, it could still fire in a hammer test holding it in your hand. Because the rules of inertia don't just say something stays in motion once it's in motion, they say something at rest stays at rest. So when you take the hammer and you smack the back of the gun, causing the gun to go into motion, the trigger is not as affected as the gun. So the trigger tends to stay at rest, and the thing that has to overcome the weight and mass of the trigger to get it to go into motion is still the trigger mechanism. So you can still make it fire that way if you don't have the gun in a vise. They didn't put the gun in a vise, and if you notice the first couple times they whack it, it doesn't go off because he holds it fairly steady. Why he didn't put it in a vise? I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have a vise. I mean, I think we all have vices. I'm not talking that kind of vise. I'm talking like, the clamp that holds them steady. But I'm sure he has vices. He's a redhead. But if he'd done that, it'd be more scientific. He didn't do that. And by what he did do, you can see he came to the completely wrong conclusions. He did not use any scientific method. And even the method he did use is flawed. So I'm calling him out to make another video to represent that in his video, because right now he's giving people bad information. Believe me, if I thought this gun was unsafe, I'd tell you, throw this piece of plastic garbage in the, piece of plastic crap in the garbage. But I'm not going to tell you that. And without using hyperbole or engaging in hyperbole here, I'll just tell you, I think striker-fired guns are abhorrent. They are a insult to all that is natural and pure in the world. They are just, they're evil. They're pure evil. So I'm not a big fan of them. So if I thought there was anything wrong with this gun, I'd tell you, don't buy it, don't carry it. But I don't want to see it misrepresented on the internet by someone who just doesn't understand the pure scientific principle of what they're doing. So redo your test, film it with a slow motion camera, or put the gun in a vise, and then redo your test, and then come to a conclusion. Because what the conclusion you came to right now, it just isn't an honest conclusion. I'm not saying you're being dishonest, although you are wearing a Vortex hat, and anyone that wears a Vortex hat in a video is obviously willing to take free merchandise from manufacturers. So get a vise, put it in a vise, then do your test, and see what happens then. I'll be glad when this is fucking over so I can get back to regular videos.